85 years after his birth and more than half a century after his death, one name still makes every martial artist sit up straight. Bruce Lee. Yet fans keep asking, could there ever be another one like him? And today we'll answer the question, why will there never be a second Bruce Lee? Let's dive in. Setting aside the underlying philosophical argument that each person is unique and cannot be duplicated, there are at least 3 reasons why there will never be another Bruce Lee. The first reason is that the cinema of the 60s and 70s was Lee's rocket booster. To understand what happened, we must go back in time. Back then, movies played a much bigger role in people's lives, because unlike today, there wasn't much other entertainment available. Blockbusters used to stay on movie screens for a very long time, unlike today. For instance, the first Star Wars film was shown in some theaters for up to a year. Bruce's popularity in Asia and the West is mainly due to the fact that his classic films stayed in theaters much longer than modern blockbusters. Nowadays, movies are shown for a few weeks at most. If they don't perform well at the box office, they immediately disappear from theaters. However, during Bruce Lee's era, after a film was successful at the box office, it was almost obligatory for it to be shown on television, where it would immediately become a huge event and attract even more attention to the star. Besides, the TV audience was much wider back then than it is now. Let's look at the statistics. The finale of the TV series Seinfeld in 1998 was watched by 76 million viewers. The series Friends in 2004 had 52 million viewers. And despite all his popularity, The Big Bang Theory in 2019 was watched by only 18 million. Why are these numbers important to us? Because in Bruce's time, movie stars received much more attention than they do these days. In Lee's era, stardom meant shared, undivided attention. In 2025, with infinite streams, no single figure can dominate screens the way he did. In other words, it's almost unrealistic for the new, hypothetical Bruce to become a star of the same level as the real Bruce without that kind of audience attention. Reason 2. The fight game itself changed. The UFC has reshaped the very terrain of combat sports. I mean that the biggest names in the martial arts world today are the fighters, not the movie stars. UFC President Dana White has called Lee the grandfather of MMA.
I'm such a huge Bruce Lee fan. I mean, Bruce Lee in his day, we wouldn't be where we are today without Bruce Lee.
Yet amidst the modern schedule would burn out any single star in 2-3 years. Today's biggest names, Lyoto Machida, Ronda Rousey, Georges St. Pierre, blaze bright but seldom for very long. But who remembers them the same way once they retired from big sports and lost their undefeated status? Yes, we still respect them, but they have become a part of history in our minds, nothing more. Even if a new Bruce climbed to the top, champions cycle so fast that Hollywood wouldn't have time to line up with scripts. Bruce studied and later settled in the United States, starting a family and blending East and West inside one person. He was well versed in the Western film industry and show business, as well as the customs and pastimes of the American elite. At that time, the names of numerous karate and kung fu champions were already well known in the States and Europe. It was then that the young actor began talking about cultivating the so-called style without style, which is not limited to anything specific and rejects belts and degrees of qualification. He dared to pit Chinese kung fu against the then dominant Japanese arts, presenting himself as the underdog master fighting gatekeepers. Reason 3. Mind power. These days, there are many examples of professional athletes and UFC fighters who have become actors after retiring. Dave Bautista and Gina Carano are just 2 such examples. But which of them achieved a reputation and fame similar to Bruce Lee's? You would need the kind of intelligence Bruce had, which earned him a reputation for being decades ahead of his time in martial arts. In short, Bruce Lee was a phenomenon who combined physical attributes, technique, charisma, and intelligence. He was not just a martial artist, but also a talented actor. What are the odds that someone else would have a similar set of qualities, show up at the right time and place, and stay on top long enough to be embraced by a wide audience? I'd say those odds are very slim. The Bruce Lee phenomenon is a combination of many factors beyond what I've listed. The second half of the 20th century was marked by a rapid growth of fashion for Eastern culture. The reason for this was the cultural crisis resulting from the two world wars, which forced Western intellectuals to seek an alternative to the Western way of thinking and living in the mystical teachings of the Middle East and Asia. The situation was similar in the martial arts. There were a huge number of karate, taekwondo, and kung fu tournaments, but there was no iconic figure who would declare himself as the messiah of the martial arts world. Not until Bruce Lee came along. In fact, he was the first figure from the world of martial arts who systematized and made understandable the philosophical maxims and sporting aspects. He was the first to create a comprehensible product of all sorts of Eastern practices and martial arts. Reason 4. Cultural and historical heritage. Lee's moves live in video game sprites. Think Liu Kang from Mortal Kombat, Fei Long from Street Fighter, Martial Law from Tekken. Actors from Jackie Chan to Donnie Yen cite him as Blueprint. Merchandise sales? Still a multi-million-dollar business 50 years on. Even today, the Amazon bestseller list rotates fresh Bruce Lee workout journals every holiday season. After his death, a genre such as the Bruceploitation movie even emerged, which capitalized on his popularity and image. Movie studios realized audiences still wanted Bruce Lee movies, so they hired lookalike actors with names like Dragon Lee and more. These films often copy Bruce Lee's clothes like the famous yellow jumpsuit, fight choreography, and even pretended to tell his life story, even if it was totally made up. Some of them were serious tributes. Many were cheap knockoffs designed to cash in on his fame. But they all show just how huge Bruce Lee's influence was. Today, Bruceploitation is a cult genre that martial arts fans love to study, mock, and sometimes even enjoy for the wild, over-the-top action. Consider one more thing. Bruce Lee died nearly 52 years ago, yet he remains popular. Movies are still being made about him starring his lookalikes. Books and merchandise bearing his name are sold, and people still debate about him. 52 years. That seems incredible to me. It is certainly the best proof of his extraordinary personality. Now it's your turn. Write in the comments which Bruce Lee film first lit the fire in you and why. Until next time, be water, my friend.